Okay, so welcome everyone to the Maryland Business Rebooted free webinar series. As you probably know by now, the Maryland Business Rebooted series is offered by the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland as really an effort to help aid the recovery of small and medium-sized businesses in Maryland. And starting this summer, we've so far had very successful series on the topics of strategy and accounting, as well as some really excellent panel discussions. And so these prior webinars are available for you to watch on our website as well. So please visit our Maryland Rebooted website to see them. And today, Professor Mary Harms is giving us the third part of her three-part series on the topic of marketing. And I'm sure you already attended her first two webinars, which were really engaging and interesting. And today, I'm really happy to welcome Mary again for her third and final webinar for Business Rebooted. So today, we'll be hearing from her on the topic of social media. So we're really excited to hear from her today. My name is Nicole Kim, and I'm a coordinator for the program, and I'll help moderate any questions you might have for Mary today. So we ask you to stay muted throughout the process for the flow, but we welcome any questions you may have. So please use the Q&A section or the chat function to submit any of your questions throughout the webinar, and I'm happy to deliver your questions to Mary. And now, without further ado, let me hand it over to Mary.
Thank you, Nicole. So yes, today I'm going to be talking about social media and trying to maximize your social media efforts. Understand that when I teach students about social media, I spend about 6 hours on it. Today, an hour and a half. So I've really tried to prune it down, but is this what you look like and feel like? I oftentimes get calls from employers saying, I need an intern. I need an intern to do social media. And I try and ask, well, what type of social media? And they go, well, we're not sure. I just need someone really badly. So hopefully today, as we go through this webinar, I can help alleviate some of those questions you might have. So social media can be confusing. It can be maddening. It can be a time waster. And it's effective. So today we're going to be looking at who's using it and how they're using it, social media strategy and tools, and then I'm really going to focus on 4 platforms that I feel are probably the best for the individuals that are here on the webinar today. We'll look at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. So I wanted to show this to you because this is research that was just done this year, 2020. And what it shows you is they asked in the last 4 years, what were the 3 apps that you couldn't live without? And as you can see, Facebook, Instagram, and Gmail lead the way. Also wanted to show you that actually YouTube is the most used social media in the US, and it's followed by Facebook. And there's just 1% difference between the two. And then what we see is Instagram. But what I would like you to do is look at the trends. And we see that Facebook in the last 4 years has decreased in popularity by about 10%. And we see Instagram rising from 39% to 51%. We see Twitter and then Pinterest and then LinkedIn. Also, I won't spend time on this, but I did want you to see this because this is updated information and you can look at this source. I highly recommend looking at this source because it does give you the social media of different countries around the globe. So what is most popular here in the US is not necessarily the most popular across the globe. And once again, we see Facebook. And here looking at daily, weekly, and monthly. And so this will give you an idea of where you really want to focus your efforts as far as bringing in new content. Last of all, I'm showing you this slide just because this is from the Pew Research Center. The Pew Research Center has been tracking internet activity by individuals ever since we had access to the internet. And they updated every year, every 18 months. So we should be getting an update very soon. But this will help you better understand the gender difference between the different platforms, the ethnicities, the ages, the income levels, educational levels, and last of all, your locations. So once again, you want to do some market research. Remember, in my first two webinars, I talked about the building up persona, doing your market research, building that persona, looking at your customer journey map, and what type of social media they were using and consulting at each point in that decision process. So this will allow you to tailor your social media efforts.
Mary,
Yes.
before you move on, so Catherine was specifically interested in knowing a little bit more about Twitter trends. So she was asking if there's any research accounting for Twitter's up and down trend over the past couple of years.
With Twitter, it's in fact, I was at Twitter's offices in New York City about a year ago now, because I have former students there and as employees. And there's more opportunities for Twitter. One of the reasons why I didn't choose necessarily to use it today is just because I think that there's been some controversy with Twitter in the last few months. And I think we kind of need to see it all sort of sort out in the next few months. I definitely think that there is reason that Twitter will continue to be a viable social media. But they are looking at some different options, most definitely. But right now, as you could see, I don't know how much of this could be as a result of just what's happening across the nation. So that's why I chose to not use it today. Okay. I did want to point out here that 64% of people expect brands to connect with their audiences. And people feel that social media is the best place to accomplish that. So if you're not doing social media, I encourage you to do so. And this is just a real quick chart or table, I'm sorry, that shows you when people go on to the various social media. Google kind of got stuck in there, but the purpose for going on to that particular platform, what they expect to see, and then the bottom line for both you and that individual, okay? And so as you can see by the next slide, all social platforms are not treated equally. And so what works for one platform may not necessarily work for another platform. So go where your target audience is and create content both for your target audience and for the platform itself. Some are just better at some options than others. So this is an example. This is an organization, Girls Night Out. And they have a newsletter that targets women who enjoy staying in and being comfortable. And so what they understand that they know their audience is the same, but their audience will choose to follow different social media platforms on different days, etc. So this is their, sorry about that. This was a tweet that they also share on Facebook. Okay, this is Facebook. And then on Instagram, they like to just put a smart little caption, little fun. Okay. What I want you to see from this is that social posts can encourage consumer likes and shares. And the posts that entertain are typically the ones that people will like or comment on. The yellow shows the type of posts that consumers will share. So you see that entertaining and then inspiration lead the others, but there's still a lot of opportunity. Now, what they have found is that up until this year, most of the posts that were doing discounts and sales were a little bit higher, but they found that this year posts that inspire have really pushed forward as far as the trend. What I do want you to consider, though, is it's better to have one strong social media presence than to join multiple platforms and not give them the care that they require. And so what you're going to see is that I did some research and I looked at different Maryland companies, and I found that there were some that really focused on one platform. They built it out, they refreshed it with new content on a regular basis, and it was just so much stronger. There were others that were on several, but none of them were built out effectively, and oftentimes the content was stale. So we only have so much time that we can give. And oftentimes, if you're a small business, you might be trying to do the social media yourself. And as you all know, you're being pulled in so many different directions. So it's always better to have one strong social media. Also want you to consider doing some social listening. So once again, look at your personas. Think about who your customers are, and then start listening on the platforms that they probably are spending their time on. So Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn are definitely good places to start listening. You may also want to look at Snapchat, Instagram, TripAdvisor, Yelp. Once again, it depends on your target audience and what industry you might be in. And once again, you can't do it all yourself. And so as your social media efforts grow, you may want to consider using, here we have Hootsuite, Sprout Social, and there are many others which will help you as far as listening, help you with finding your actionable insights, helping you understand how you can build your social media efforts, given the fact that you've got these competitors. When you start listening, you may feel that no one's talking about your brand and there's not much to listen to. And that can be especially true for B2B brands. So what I encourage you to do then is to identify the primary influencers in your space, find those influencers, and then see what they're talking about. And people won't always mention your brand, and they may not even mention it by the correct brand name. They may use a misspelling. Sometimes they'll use abbreviations. And they may simply just talk about your industry, but not necessarily call you out specifically. So I encourage you to put together a list of words that people may use to describe you, your industry, and your competitors. And then track the conversation around those keywords. So that's something that I'm going to show you in just a moment, but social media can be overwhelming. So the more you can organize it, the more effective you're going to be. And one way is to make a list of those keywords that are prevalent in the posts, the tweets, etc. And as you can see here, 88% of high performing marketers collaborate with service departments to respond to social inquiries and concerns. So you really do look at your your service department, it may be yourself. Talk to your sales team, okay? And once again, that may be yourself, but that can give you a better understanding of how you can integrate your social media. And then create analytics reports. And here I just included, this is for Instagram, but there are so many out there. Social listening puts you in an enviable position. You've got this mountain of data, right? That you've gleaned from observing your target audience's behavior on social media. So you can get some sentiment analysis. Are they speaking highly of either your business or your competitors' businesses? Are they asking for referrals? Where should I go to buy? Okay. Look and see what are the most active networks. And then you may want to quantify the total mentions of your name or your industry. And then try and identify some pain points that they may be feeling. And they've gone onto social media to express them that you could then capitalize on, okay? Understand that channels will change over time, but the importance of knowing your individual customers stays the same throughout. And empower your employees. If you've got employees, encourage them to have LinkedIn profiles. And then you can put together links, or maybe you've got case studies or white papers, etc., and have them paste them or post them on their LinkedIn profile or their Instagram. Okay. Now, this is a former student of mine. She works at a company that does packaging in New York City for brands. And so the creative director wrote a story, very informative about packaging and what's happening with packaging today. And so, and the importance of stories over stickers in packaging design. And so then she sent that out. I would have never seen it had it not been that her company had encouraged her to share it on her profile. So one of the reasons why companies love social media and why users love social media is because it allows the brand to become more human. Blogs initially did that, and now we see there's still room for blogs out there, that social media can humanize your brand. So you can admit when you're wrong and apologize when needed, or you can share behind the scenes looks at life at work, okay? You may want to show the names or faces of those who manage your social. and use real people language and really have a sense of humor. Understand that humor will vary depending on the region. And especially if you're global, it may not translate. You want to be careful about oversharing, and posting too often can actually turn off your audience. Everyone's busy. And so they'll appreciate that when you do post, it's very clear and concise. So you'll need a social media editorial calendar. And when I send interns out for the summer, and even during the school year, to companies to do social media for the companies, what I often hear back from the companies as one of the best benefits from those interns is that they put together a social media editorial calendar. So as you can see here, there are templates out there online that you can easily find. You can easily put it together with an Excel spreadsheet format. But once again, you need the title, and then who's going to be writing it, the topic, the date that you're going to publish it, the time you're going to publish it, any images that you need, and then where are you going to publish it? Here's another example where it's been all written out. And here's a smaller, maybe more manageable for you to start out with. But I really do encourage you to put together a calendar. I also encourage you that if you are not writing all of the social media, that you have others writing it for you, that you put together a handbook and encourage them to give their feedback on what your brand voice should be. And perhaps there are some social media platforms that they are on that they know better than you do. And just understand that you don't have to comment on every event. And once again, include your employees. Find those employees that you think really do a good job and encourage them, give them some ownership in this activity. And understand there's going to be some negative feedback.
Oh, Mary?
Yes.
Sorry. We had a question from Kim who's asking, kind of going off of your kind of, your suggestion of, keep posting on social media. This is really important. Kim is actually asking if you have further guidelines on how often they should be posting. So is there such a thing as too much content on social media?
There is, and I've tried, I think on all of these that I'm talking about today, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I think I've given you suggestions. It will vary depending on the platform. Okay, so let's go through it. And then if you still have questions, feel free to ask again.
Yeah, before we move on, also, Drina also had a question regarding whether a business can use LinkedIn posts for short abbreviated blogs.
Sure. Yes. There's, you're talking about that, that you have actually created and posted on LinkedIn, and then you want to use it as a blog posting? Most definitely.
She said yes.
Yes, okay. Otherwise, you definitely want to attribute who initially posted it. But most definitely. And I think that, as I mentioned before, social media platforms have different strengths and weaknesses, just like we as adults do, or people do. But there are definitely ways that you can share. There are some that lend themselves better for sharing than others. All right. Good questions. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about negative feedback, and I encourage you to respond quickly. Don't delete the post from your page if it's on a network like Instagram or Facebook, where comments can be deleted. Your customers would typically view that deletion as a sign that your brand is dishonest and trying to hide the truth. And so if someone is clearly out to tarnish your reputation or your name, it's best not to play that game on social media. Instead, send them your customer service email address or phone number and ask them to contact you directly. Okay. But each channel has its own sets and its own rules. And last of all, initiate an approval process for your social. So you need to decide who gets to add content to your social channels and when. And then some of them actually have permissions for administrators. Others require the use of a third-party tool. So once again, they all have their rules, understand those. And within your company itself, I encourage you to create an approval process so that no one is harmed. Okay, look at this. Today, nearly 80% of time spent on social media is spent on mobile devices. Okay? So when you're sharing content on social and hoping consumers will take action, whether it's clicking, or purchasing, or sharing, every call to action must be seamless on mobile, okay? So you need to be constantly testing your call to actions and making sure that it's very easy for them to share. And you work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and I'm sure many of you you're laughing at me right now, and you're laughing at the slide saying, are you kidding me? I work Saturdays, I work Sundays. Yeah, that's the way the world is today. And understand too, your community may be global. So, and they're checking their social media at different times than you are. So go ahead and post outside of your regular office hours. It could help your content actually stand out from others. And when you have a new marketing campaign, social media is a great way to test it. It's sort of your ideal test lab, and you can use tracking URLs as an effective way to really prove the return on your investment. And I think that's something that many don't understand, that yes, it's great to have followers and it's great to have likes and views, but what it really comes down to is having a return on your investment. And so you may want to experiment with different headlines or posting types to see which one actually works. Okay, but the goal is one-to-one interactions. That's why they're doing social media. And so here are some of the goals that you might want to measure. And I highly recommend that when you sit down and you're thinking about doing social media, that you put together goals, okay? And they will vary, and it may vary from what you're hoping to accomplish on Facebook rather than what you're hoping to accomplish on LinkedIn versus Pinterest versus Twitter versus Instagram, okay? But understand that it's better to execute well on one or two goals rather than to dilute your efforts and try to do too much. and only measure what is valued. So go beyond the vanity metrics, like I mentioned, the likes, the loves, etc. Now, this will not come as a surprise to most of you. This is where people are spending their time during the pandemic. And as you see, 44% of them are browsing social media. Let's now look at Facebook. And you all have a personal profile page, but you really need to do a business page. It's free, it's simple, it's versatile. You can add appointments. So if you're a service provider, it's a great way of making sure that appointments can be scheduled. Events tool, job listings, so you can actually manage them from your Facebook page, and shopping. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on social commerce, but that is definitely an area that's growing in popularity right now, because your social media platforms are saying, okay, we've already got you here. Why should we be sending our visitors to websites? Okay, they can just buy off of the site. Okay, so once again, understand that Facebook owns Instagram, who owns WhatsApp, and they also own Messenger. And so what we are seeing is that in the past, those have been individual companies. We are seeing more of a blending of those as Facebook creates more of an ecosystem, similar to what Apple has done and many other tech companies, because it works. Understand that your Facebook page is an ideal avenue for claiming your niche. And it just makes it easier for customers to know all about you. So this is a Facebook page for Hemingway's. If you've ever gone over the Bay Bridge, you'll notice Hemingway's on the right-hand side. They don't even know I'm putting this up here, so but what I liked about it is that you want that Facebook page to really stand out, to show your unique value proposition. And without any words, you can see that view, and that's their unique value proposition, okay? They've really built it out well. And so as you can see here, book a table, they have about, they have photos, posts, reviews, etc. So this is what I mean by, if you can't do several, do one and do it really well. For time purposes, I encourage you to look at this page. It will walk you step by step as to how you can create your Facebook business page. And within your page, then you can do page promotions. And once again, this is a very easy way to promote on Facebook, and they will actually create it for you. And then as you get more experienced, you might want to create your own text and audience, which I will show you in just a moment. But I really encourage you to run promotions on Facebook. Have that call to action, promote your local business, and you can geographically target these promotions. So as I said earlier, you can create ads quickly. You can find the right audience. You can look at age, you can look at gender, you can look at location, and then look at the ad creative. Think about, is it going to be on desktop or mobile, Instagram? Set your budget and manage your ads, and get detailed performance back, Facebook does an excellent job with their analytics. So real quickly, promote the business page you can see here. Then you select the type of ad you want to run. Then you choose your ad creative, the photo that you want to use, the text. You create your audience. And you can do that through targeting. As I mentioned before, you can exclude, include, match people from interest. Here's your audience. Then you set your budget, the duration, view your payment method, and then review your selection, okay? And as I mentioned before, Facebook has excellent analytics that will allow you to do a much better job as far as both your being effective and being efficient. And here is a business page and another business page with their value proposition right up here. Easy for people to see. And once again, all built out. I'm going to talk now about Instagram because we have seen an increase in Instagram. Most definitely, if you are appealing to millennials and Gen Xers, you want to consider Instagram. Many of them consider Facebook now to be more something that their parents or maybe even their grandparents would use. So with Instagram, I'm going to give you some ideas for promotions and understand that many of these promotions could also be used on Facebook. Instagram is a very visual social media platform. There are actually restaurants and other types of retailers that are creating Instagrammable areas within their retail location to be able to take advantage of the popularity of Instagram right now. So highly encourage you to think about contests. Contests will encourage your followers to come back more often. Perhaps you'll gain more followers. Now this is for Lundberg Farms, and they ran a contest where you could submit your family recipe, and then they would choose which recipes would then be included on their Instagram page. And so once again, that's just going to encourage people to check back or tell others that their recipe was featured on Lundberg's. So Instagram also allows you to show that you're an expert. You can encourage inspiration and motivation and user-generated content, and that's what the contest was for. But highly recommend that you encourage individuals. You know, restaurants at first weren't quite sure that they liked people taking photos of the food and posting them until they saw how much it generated in awareness. So use video. 87% of online marketers incorporate video content. And so Lundberg has done that. There are several videos that they show of the history of the farm, their efforts in sustainability, their efforts in encouraging everyone to eat better. And so it really does help not only build awareness, but also build the brand's personality. So on Instagram, you've got two different ways of getting your content on. And the first one is you can have a business account. And the other is a sponsored post. So as you can see here, the business account you can create your own branded account and you can post the content for free of charge, but you do have to gain followers, and that's going to be hard at first. So think about, how are you going to promote others to follow you? The sponsored posts work a little bit differently. You pay to reach a certain audience, regardless if they're following the brand or not. Okay. And now, a lot of things have changed on Instagram in the last 10 years, but the one thing that has really stayed important throughout are hashtags. And so I'm going to talk about hashtags together, because I think sometimes we don't really take the time and effort to think about which ones would actually gain us more viewership. So hashtags are how people search and find new brands and products on Instagram. And a post with at least one Instagram hashtag will average almost 13% more engagement. So you want to do some hashtag research, and I'll show you how to do that in just a few moments. But you want to use tags that people are actually using and searching for. And there are many hashtags that are just too generic. So think about that long tail keyword as a hashtag, so that you can really target and be concise and relevant to your brand. Now, you may want to create your own brand's hashtag. That's great, but understand that it's going to take a while before people pick up on it. So if you are using it, use other hashtags too. So until you get that following really built up. So here's an example. We're going to talk about community hashtags and branded hashtags. Now, you can also have campaign hashtags, which would be for an advertising campaign. But that particular hashtag, that campaign hashtag, won't last that long. They're really designed to connect with that particular campaign. Community and branded hashtags typically last for quite a while. So people can discover your content after it's been up for a while, okay? So you've got, here I give you an example of community hashtags and then branded hashtags, okay? And the characteristics of each. And be sure that you remind your followers and your customers that you do have that branded hashtag to encourage them to use it. So when you are thinking about your hashtags, here's a company that you can use that will help you find your hashtags. You can also research your audience. I mean, once again, through social listening, you probably saw that there were some hashtags that were being used over and over again for your target audience to find content that they were interested in. You also want to research your competitors and see what hashtags they might be using. And once again, those industry leaders, check their hashtags and be sure to look for related hashtags. You should try to have between 5 and 10 and switch them up in your posts. You don't want to use the same hashtags over and over again. It starts to appear to your followers a bit spammy. Now, I wanted to show this to you because last time I talked about B2B, and this is for Dixon Valve. They're located in Chestertown, Maryland. And I really kind of thought, I found their LinkedIn profile, but I couldn't imagine that they would have an Instagram, and they do. So why do you think Dixon Valve would have an Instagram business account? If you remember, I talked last time when we were talking about B2B, there are more millennials who are becoming B2B buyers, and they are on social media. So there's a good chance, look, Dixon Valve has over 1,000 followers on Instagram. Okay, and here is a video that they've embedded. Stories. Now, stories is one of the leading trends. Right now, there are 3 main social media trends. Live media, or I'm sorry, yes, live social media, streaming, stories, and user-generated content. And Snapchat actually was the originator of this in 2014. Instagram picked up on it in 2016. And it has, I think, been one of the reasons why Instagram has become so popular. But we are now also seeing that LinkedIn just announced they're going to have LinkedIn stories. Facebook is going to have stories. Pinterest has Pinterest stories in beta testing right now. So with stories, they really have become a vital part of the Instagram ecosystem. And you can either use them on your own branded Instagram page or through sponsored posts. And what we see with stories is that they are photos or videos posted on Instagram accounts that disappear after 24 hours. They are then live, they can be archived onto your profile page as a highlight. But because of their short lifespan and the added functions, such as stickers and polls and GIFs, etc., they can come across as more authentic and engaging to the viewers. Okay. And as you can see here, they can be 15 seconds, they can be a video or a photo. So I've given you some suggestions here as how to use Instagram stories. You can do live video streaming. You've got your stickers. You can do behind the scenes. You can share tips or tricks for using your products, cover an event, use an office tour or show how a product is made. And there are many apps for Instagram templates right now. And I've included some of those for you. And as you can see, both for stories and for videos and highlights. And I think this really sort of repeats what I've talked about before, but there is an excellent mini masterclass on Instagram makeovers on Instagram's TV. So I encourage you, she shows the before and after. But a story differs from other social media offerings because it offers the opportunity for real-time interaction. And it can be a great platform for a brand looking to repurpose their top performing content. So as someone was mentioning earlier, take some of your blog postings, in infographics that you've created, videos or FAQs, and then create stories and use them for Instagram. Yes, Instagram still has posts, as we see here. They can appear on your account page, or they can appear on the feeds of your followers. Be sure you include those branded hashtags and use colors that will make it stand out, have a call to action, integrate links. This is for a company in Annapolis that they do photography using drones, and this is their Instagram. So there's a wide variety of companies that can use Instagram. New York Times has an excellent Instagram, Harvard Business Review. So understand that there's many opportunities out there for a wide variety of businesses. And once again, use that humor. This is for Skinny Pop, and as you can see, the ghost that's created totally out of Skinny Pop popcorn. And Instagram Live, I mentioned for events, for tours. Once again, you just want to make sure that you schedule it and let your influencers and others know about it. You want to maybe have your followers send in questions that can be answered in the live stream. And I just wanted to include this. This is, we find that about 75% of companies will use Canva for their Instagram, but Adobe is also popular. It's used by about 20%. And there are shortcuts. This is from Social Fresh, which is a platform that really focuses on helping companies with their Instagram. So I can't really talk about Instagram without talking about influencers, and I'm just quickly going to talk about them. Yes, we typically think of influencers. We think of perhaps the Kardashians. Understand that influencers tend to be more transactional. And that has sort of turned some individuals away from following influencers. Instead, what we are seeing is that especially Gen Z, millennials, they are really looking at content creators. And these are individuals who curate content based on what they're passionate about. And they don't necessarily have that transactional reputation. Okay. Now, if you do plan on using influencers, I encourage you to use nano influencers who would have, we'll go here. Nano influencers are those that have a following of maybe 500 to 5,000 people. Okay. Then your micro influencers would have up to 10,000 followers. Now, those that have, hundreds of thousands, there's not a lot of engagement with them and their followers. But there are with those nano influencers. So maybe it's someone within your industry, maybe it's someone in your geographical location. Maybe it's your Chamber of Commerce director or your economic development director. If they've got an Instagram account and they are really active on it, they could be an influencer for your business. So this, once again, just covers micro influencers and then the larger ones. So influencers can help with product reviews. They can mention your brand. They can help with the event coverage. They can help with sponsored content. The hard part is going to be finding really effective, experienced, credible influencers. Now, this is a couple, they're teachers in Alaska. But in the summertime, they give tours. And they've been doing that for a decade or more. So they have an Instagram account and they are influencers, and companies do use them because they're credible. and they talk about products that they use. So there's brand mentions, and they've got expertise, and they go into detail about the products and how they use them. So look at that if you're going to use an Instagram content creator or influencer. And once again, there are companies that will help you find influencers that might be right for your company. And as time has gone on, we have found that the practice has become more regulated. And so I won't go into it in depth, but I encourage you, if you are using influencers, to look at this because it is monitored by the FTC. And Instagram has insights, just as Facebook does. So you really can get a good understanding of it, and this is a free tool, but you can then have a better idea of when you want to schedule your posts. Okay, we're going to go on now and look at LinkedIn quickly. It's not just for professionals and job seekers. It can be excellent at building your brand. So people often search for industry or company or location or job position. So once again, think about keywords that people might be using to search, and make sure that those are in your title and sprinkled throughout your summary or about section. Use polished photos. Now, I included this because I think some of you are independent businesses, and you want to make sure that you have a nice headshot. It doesn't have to be formal or buttoned down. And once again, maybe have a LinkedIn day where you help all of your sales reps put together their LinkedIn page or make it look more professional, and include a background photo for them to use as a banner photo. Let's look at the next page. Okay, this is an individual. He's still using the default Instagram banner. The photo, he was nicely dressed, but maybe not as engaging. So this is what I did to it. He's in the medical device and pharmaceutical industry. So we used a banner that automatically announces that. And we used a new photo. Well, where did that photo come from? Well, it actually came from a picture of him with his grandson. And as you can see, very cluttered. But you can go to this website, and I highly encourage you to look at this. It will remove the background in any photo. Well, it did for this person, but then their hair didn't look right. So we quickly edited it, and that is their new photo. And this all took a matter of maybe 5 minutes. And they have a myriad of backgrounds that you can use. And I encourage you to do that, because your photo is what is going to show up when people search for you and your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so you want to make sure that that is looking professional. So the most important content on your LinkedIn profile will be your headline and your summary. And once again, she's taken good advantage of that banner. This is for our advertising agency. She's given, this is her title, but what I really like is her summary. And it clearly states what they can do. And these are excellent keywords that companies would be searching for. For those of you who do have your personal LinkedIn page, understand that you should list at least 5 skills. And by doing that, you're going to have more views, and then prioritize those skills with the top 3 being the most relevant. But you might also want to have a business LinkedIn page. To be perfectly honest, people follow individuals more than they follow brands on LinkedIn. But by having a brand LinkedIn profile page, that's just one more way that you can connect possibly with your target audience. And it's very easy to do. These are the directions. And here's Dixon Valve with their LinkedIn page. But understand that it can also be for nonprofits as well. This is for the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, and here as we see for Shepherd Pratt. If you do have a LinkedIn profile, I highly recommend that you customize your URL. Claim it for yourself, okay? It makes it easier for people to link to you and search your profile. And once you do this, you want to update your URL wherever, in your email signature. But if you do this by claiming your custom URL, you're going to make it more likely that your LinkedIn profile will rank towards the top of your search engine results page. Okay, so that should be incentive. And then once again, you want to optimize for your mobile. And in March of 2018, Google rolled out that mobile first indexing for search results. And that impacted both your website, I talked about that earlier in another webinar, but also your LinkedIn presence. And LinkedIn profile and articles will rank on search engine results pages. So make the most of them. And here you can do posts, you can do videos, you can do articles. And this just gives you an idea if your videos on LinkedIn are native, you can have up to 5 gigabytes in size or 10 minutes in length. However, videos under 90 seconds are preferred. So think about how you can encapsulate what you're trying to show, a product demo, a how-to, or a testimonial in 90 seconds. And be sure that you do comment on other people's posts. That can actually boost your own engagement, and you can gain connections, and people will reciprocate. And understand that, yes, it is a social network. So how often should you post? They say, LinkedIn says 1 to 2 times a day. Once again, it's totally up to you if you have the time. I think sometimes you may just initially want to start out with maybe once or twice a week and then work out from there. You also want to join groups, and this is an excellent way if you don't have the premier version of LinkedIn. It's a way to do some social listening and establish yourself as the industry leader. And once again, hashtags are critical for LinkedIn, and you should have around 5 to 6 hashtags. And that long form content that I talked about earlier works well. So this would be advertising and marketing, business intelligence, okay, would fall into that category. And naturally mention influencers when you are on LinkedIn, and hopefully then they will reciprocate, but create an appreciation post acknowledging the help that they've given you, or interview an influencer and upload that interview and tag it in your post, or share a quote by them. So lastly, Pinterest, and I will make this very quick because of the time, but it's so, it has always been primarily a visual social media platform, and your content is evergreen. What we do find is that it skews more towards women, but we also find that during the pandemic, we have seen its following increase. We see people use it for inspiration, and it's very, the stickiness is very high. People spend a lot of time on Pinterest. So what you do is you would create pins, and there are different categories of those. And then your audience can either find you through their home feed. They can do a search, like I did. The previous slide was Halloween decorations, okay? Related pins might be another way. This is the Today tab. I just clicked on Pinterest on Today, and this is what came up. So this is another way of discovering new businesses. So pins can be organic or they can be shared. And the organic ones are those that are original content and that a brand or that person creates. And then your shared pins are created by pinning content discovered from all over the web. And you've got here, this is a standard pin. This is a video pin. Now we have shopping pins, we have app pins, and then a carousel, which will show several photos, one right after the other. And you'll always have your link up here. You'll have your title, then you'll have some text, and then this pin is on a board. Okay, so this is a board. I did a search for, I think, Maryland weddings, and then I clicked on explore. And so here are all these pins, and I clicked on this pin, and up came information about Great Oak Manor. You could also do a shop, and I did that, and the board looked totally different. Pinterest has some excellent brand guidelines and basics. So hopefully you are looking more like this than the individual early on in my presentation. Understand that to summarize getting started with social media, you need to identify the social media channels that really resonate with your target market, and then set goals for your social media efforts, create the editorial calendar, and then create a brand guide so you know that there's consistency, especially if you're not the only one creating that social media content. And then focus on the channels that you have the resources to really do a good job on initially and really forever. Then start creating content, but understand you've got to promote the fact that your brand is on social media. When I get the granola that I really love from, I think it's Michelle, in the box is the granola, and there's always a card showing where she is on Instagram, Pinterest, etc. So get help for creating content, and then offer feedback to your users, and then gain insights from your social media analytics. And last of all, enjoy building that relationship with your customer base. And with that, I'll entertain questions, but I do want you to understand that we do have some more webinars coming up, Fostering Enterprise and Creating Value in Trade, January 19th. And then recent trends and challenges of the retail industry and implications for small and medium-sized retailers, also at that same time, okay? So with that, are there any questions?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Mary. We'll take questions, and because we kind of lost a few minutes in between, we want to give you some more time to answer questions from our audience. So please submit any answers or any questions that you have in the chat function or the Q&A. But I did have some questions about influencers when you were talking about how to or really tap into micro influencers. And I was kind of curious, how do you kind of go about finding these micro or small influencers that are in your kind of area or field?
Right. A lot of that goes back to doing social listening. And you really, before you post content on any one of the platforms, you really do need to spend some time on those platforms and, think about what might be some keyword phrases and type those in, do a search, and over a period of time, you are going to find some consistency on individuals who are posting. You're going to see how many followers they have. I think you can judge if it might be a good fit for you. And then, you can approach them. The other way would be there, like I said, there are companies that will help you do that. But actually, to begin with, you can, through social listening, learn a lot about who would be a influential influencer for you. And once again, those nanos, they oftentimes are very engaged with their followers. And so, and they appear so authentic.
I'm just waiting to see if we have any other questions from the audience. So if anybody has any questions, you can either raise your hand as well if you want to speak directly to Mary, or submit them to the Q&A. I'll just give everybody a couple of minutes if they have any questions that they want to come up with, or have taking some time typing it in. But I did want to speak a little bit about our next webinars. So thank you again, Mary, for your 3-part session on the marketing topic. And thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us today. I know we had a little glitch, but thank you so much for staying on. And today's webinar is really special because it's Mary's last webinar for Business Rebooted, but also this will be our last webinar for 2020. But more good things are coming, as Mary just informed us. In 2021, Professor Rajshri Agarwal will start the first webinar, so that's the January 19th. And then we invited Professor Jie Zhang, who will give us a 3-part series on retailing. And it actually starts, there's a typos here, so it starts on January 27th, the following week. So we look forward to seeing you then. And again, our Maryland Rebooted program is created to help Maryland business owners navigate the impact of COVID-19. And I think I speak for everyone when I say these webinars have been really, really helpful to think through how businesses could handle these uncertain times. So on top of that, it's just been a really kind of joy to tune in. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the next year. It seems like we don't really have any further questions from our audience. So let's leave it here. And thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Mary.